Howdy friends, welcome back to Plumbing with Tim. In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate to you fine folks out there how to install a frost-free hydrant on your home or your business. Let's go. All right, you folks out there that are unaware of what a frost-free hydrant is, let me show you. Inside this box is a frost-free hydrant. It's made by the company Wolverine Brass, and we've chose to go with an 8-inch frost-free hydrant. Let's open up the box and see what we've got. There's the hydrant. And we'll talk about what this little piece right here is. Now, frost-free hydrant is predominantly installed on homes and businesses where in the wintertime it can get down below freezing. And I'll explain to you exactly how this works and why it looks the way it does. Now, I don't happen to have just a regular hose bib that you would get. A lot of southern folks and plumbers know where all you see is this part right here, which would attach to a water source from underneath your structure, your house and everything, and then a water line would connect to this. Well, a frost-free hydrant is extended, and the reason why is because you want this area to be underneath the house where it's protected from freezing cold air in the wintertime. Other companies out there that make this type of product and stuff, these are generally predominantly in cold weather regions. We're here in western Kentucky where it is fairly decent weather year-round, hot in the summer, but it does freeze in the wintertime. Unlike a typical outside faucet, hose bib, spigot, whatever you want to call it, this has a long shaft that's in the middle of it that holds a seated gasket. So when you turn the water off to this thing, all the stuff that's inside of here water-wise is going to escape the inside of this chamber and out through there, so it doesn't trap any kind of water up inside of this system, allowing it to freeze and break. They make multiple different sizes of these frost-free hydrants, all the way up to 15 inches, 20 inches to accommodate the thickness of your outside wall. Now, during this particular demonstration, we are not at a customer's house, more like we are at my own custom cabin build up here next to Kentucky Lake in the rolling back hills of western Kentucky. The reason why I want to have a frost-free hydrant here at the cabin is because I'm getting ready here in about 2 or 3 weeks to plant a garden here in an area to grow some plants and vegetables and stuff, and I need to have some sort of a watering source to keep them growing. Now, over the past couple of years of building this custom cabin, at that time I accommodated for future installation of one of these frost-free hydrants. Today we're going to be putting it here on this wall. It's got backing board. Let's talk about that before we get any work done. Now, before you get deciding to install one of these frost-free hydrants, if you live in a cold weather region during the winter, which I do, in the particular county in which I live in, down in the farmlands, into the valleys and town and stuff, predominantly the homes are built out of concrete block or brick, which usually have crawl spaces monolithically and stuff. But up here in the country where there isn't any of that kind of stuff, most of the structures are manufactured homes, trailers, and in my case it's a custom build, which I had actually put footers in the ground and raised my building up on blocks and strapped everything with airplane steel and all that stuff. And I had to build a floating wall to put the underpinning and skirting around here. So we had to actually build backing when we were in the middle of building this for future installation, what we're doing. So that's already been taken care of. Now, if you're going to be doing this on a concrete block or a brick structure, you're going to need to have a hammer drill with a large masonry bit and all that stuff to accommodate for that. So that's the difference between using Tapcons and masonry bits to using just regular wood screws and wood backing. If you're a plumber, a contractor, homeowner and stuff like that, and you get involved with something like this, usually most homes are already established some sort of outside spigot, which means that you're pretty much disconnecting that, pulling it out, and you're installing a new one of these devices. First thing you need to actually understand and identify is what type of water pipe is supplied underneath the house that you're tying into. It could be copper, CPVC, but in my case, because this is a new install and I'm showing this from scratch, when I built this house, I installed Uponor Aquapex. So that's going to tell me what type of an adapter I need to put on the end of this frost-free hydrant. In this case, I have a 1/2-inch brass by Uponor female adapter that we're going to be making up and threading on at the end of this frost-free hydrant. First, before we do anything, we want to make this all up. That way it's ready to go. Teflon tape first for your threaded. It doesn't matter if it's an adapter for brass to CPVC or copper, all that stuff. Teflon tape first on the male end of your frost-free hydrant. Next, pipe dope. Right over top of that thread tape. Nice and generously. See that? Right after that, my adapter. See how I'm doing that? I tighten that down until it's hand tight, and we're going to easily put a wrench on here. We don't want to crush this, and put another wrench on here and turn it until it's nice and snug. Now, like I said, this part of the job, what you just saw, it all comes down to what type of water piping supply you have inside the house. Okay, they do make these adapters. It'll be from brass to CPVC, or brass to copper, or whatever you want it to do, or another male fitting on there. You could screw it into some sort of brass, but in this case, it's Uponor Aquapex, and this is what you should be looking at this point in the install. Y'all still with me? Great. Now, this next step of the install of a frost-free hydrant has two beneficial reasons, and it is non-essential, it is a preference of mine, or it could be a saving grace. If you're out replacing something that's like this, look at the two screw holes. See those? Those are the holes used to put the screws into to mount them to whatever structure you're at. Well, if you pull out an old one and it's been there in a long time, those two holes that are either in the concrete or the brick, the screws might have rotted out or they're all blown out and the thing's just wobbling around through there. So it's really tough to put a new one in there without having to rework that foundation that's already blown out, wallowed out and everything. Here's a solution. A simple wall cover plate. Check it out. Here's that frost-free hydrant. I can slide it through just like this. See that? And in essence, this thing will line up so I can connect this hydrant to a wall plate. This widens my screws out further, so I don't have to worry about old wallowed out holes from an old install. And I have two fresh, nice and easy to put in. All right, you'll have to drill out the holes, mark them if you're doing with tap cons in masonry and stuff like that. But also, by having this cover plate on here, it widens things out, which gives it a more sturdy stance on that wall, making sure there's more stability and the lack of it wiggling around and taking the risk of breaking a pipe up underneath the house. I'll show you how this thing goes on. Now, before you all start asking me questions, Tim, where do I get all this stuff and everything? Remember, I'm a plumber and I work for a plumbing company. So we have suppliers that provide all this stuff. If you're a homeowner or you're an up-and-coming plumber and stuff like that, you need to start doing the research yourself, looking online, asking different plumbing supplies, or if you're going to a big box store and you're buying their product, ask them if they have a matching cover plate to accommodate this type of installation. All right, to install this particular product, I'm going to take the handle off the hydrant, and it comes with a flathead screw. We're going to take that handle completely off here. Don't lose any of your parts or anything like that. Just take and remove it completely off of the hydrant, and this will be the last thing that we install back in after the installation is complete. Just a single screw. Most of them are pretty similar. You're going to get some that have some different kind of handles, but they all come with the same concept. And there's the handle. That's what we want to have in place before we put our cover plate on. All right, whether you're going to do the install without a cover plate or not, inside of these boxes, no matter what the manufacturing is, they usually have a beveled plastic spacer. See that? Okay, and at the very top, the writing that's going to be at the top, it says, remove hose in freezing weather. This thing, if it's just doing a regular install without a cover plate, will slide down over this on the top end. And see what that does? It creates a pitch against a finished product, which means that when this thing gets turned off with the hose off of there, the water inside of this chamber, once you turn the water off, is going to roll out of that cylinder, allowing it to evacuate what's inside and not making it prone to freezing in cold weather. So you have an empty chamber. I'm going to take my cover plate. It doesn't matter, upside down, whatever. It's got a decorative finish, so you'll know that's what's going to be facing on the outside. I'm going to take that, I'm going to slide it down. I'm going to line those holes up with a spacer and the two holes in the hydrant with a couple screws that came with the actual plate, and attach this plate, and you're going to see something like that. I'll show you. There you guys go. We've got the hydrant We've got our beveled spacer. I always put that beveled spacer in before you mount this to the wall and before a cover plate if that's what you're going to do. And what that does is allow when you go to put this in that it's going to pitch it just a tiny little bit on the final installation. So when you cut this off, the water will run out and it won't escape water in here, making it prone to freezing. All right, so now that you've seen how to put together one of these and get it prepped and ready to go for installation, in this case, like I said, we have metal siding with wood backing and stuff. So if you don't and you're working with concrete or mortar or brick and stuff like that, you're going to have to work this whole installation around concrete bits, Tapcon bits and stuff, and wallow your hole out big enough to accommodate the size of this adapter. In this case, because it is metal and it is wood, I have a hole saw, and it fits perfectly for the size. See how that slips in there? That'll cut through the metal, it'll cut through the wood. It's all going to come down to what your mounting is going to be. Like I said, brick, concrete, metal, vinyl, whatever it's going to be. You got to find the right thing that's going to work for you. Let's head over to the installation site and get this thing set in the wall. All right, we're at the site of the install where we need to drill a hole. X marks the spot, as you can see right there. Let's go ahead with our hole saw and just get the metal itself, the thin piece of metal on the underskirting of this out, and then we'll have to draw out the wood that's on the inside. All right, we're all set and ready to mount this new hydrant to the wall, but before we do so, we're going to take a full length, a 1/2 inch Uponor pipe. We're going to put one of our little bands on here, like so, and we're going to attach that to that adapter I just showed you. Get it all the way on there. There we go. Pow, look at that. Awesomeness. Very, very nice looking. Lots of support back behind it. It's not going to move around anywhere. You saw me push that pipe all the way through that hole to underneath the house. That's where we got to go next to hook it into our water supply. But first, we need to cut the water off to the house. All right, so now that we've got the water shut off to the cabin and all the water lines drained down, it's time for us to get underneath the house and finish this job off. Let's go. All right, we made it over here to where we installed the frost-free hydrant. And if you can see on the inside, look at the pitch this thing has. Yeah, so that way we know when we turn off that spigot outside that hydrant, all the water is going to roll out of here and outside, protecting this. That is awesome, and it's all because we used that little plastic beveled spacer. There she is right there. 3/4 by 3/4 half T with a half line coming out, and it's got a plug on it, Uponor Aquapex. This is what we roughed in during the construction of the cabin, and that is our goal of where we're going to connect the new frost-free hydrant. All right, so I apologize not catching the last few moments of putting the connections together underneath the building, but we had technical difficulties and my Uponor gun jammed. And usually I can unjam it, but we had to take the thing out, take it completely apart, and the ram had stuck itself open to the point we had to re-grease it, clean it all out, and that took an hour out of all the production. But that being said, y'all got the idea. We've got it connected, all strapped down. We're ready to get some water turned on and test this thing out. Hey, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching the new install of a frost-free hydrant at my own very home here in the rolling back hills of western Kentucky. A lot of foibles. It was a difficult, kind of crazy little video, more than other videos I've done and everything. If you follow these simple steps that I showed you on the install, you will have a 99% rate of success. But just make sure that you do things the proper way. What you didn't see at the very end is I went ahead and I took some pure silicone, see-through silicone, and I caulked around that entire seal of that front plate to make sure that no wind or no air was going to get in there and freeze my pipes. Not to mention the fact, if you have these types of faucets and hydrants on your home, make sure when you know the cold weather's coming to disconnect those hoses so you don't have any problems with them splitting. Got any comments, questions? Leave them down below, and don't forget to keep plumbing.